Group C is done, Group D just around the corner. Welcome back, everybody. We are live from Burbank in California, the wonderful downtown Burbank you can see on screen, where we'll be having dinner later on this evening. Just thought I'd let you in on that
Fire
one.
truck's leaving to put out the passion in my heart.
Indeed, in control. I'm joined by the old boys club on the couch now. We have in control Artosis and Tasteless. Our highlight match coming up in a quick second is going to be TY versus Nerchio. Before we talk to the guys to my left, let's have a look who else is in Group D.
The second highest ranked player from the Korean region. Solar has a very strong 2016 with multiple high-place finishes, including the 5th and most important championship victory in Star League Season 2. Elaser has had a very consistent year and has grown tremendously as a player throughout it. Despite this, he's still an underdog in this group as he enters the biggest tournament of his career as one of the lowest seeds. Completing the group is Nerchio, who's been very vocal about wanting to play and succeed against the Korean players. Now is the perfect time to display what he's capable of. TY attends the global finals for the very first time. Deservedly so though, as his year performance has been remarkable, battling as one of the very best Terrans in the world, a strong contender to advance.
Group D, two Polish players going up against the Koreans. And historically in StarCraft, in Brood War, StarCraft 2, Poland has always been a strong nation. And once again, in more recent times, very strong. Nerchio leading the pack, a laser right behind him. But can they go up and defeat the Koreans in this group, Artosis?
You know, for a laser, he's one of the really big underdogs in the tournament. In fact, he might be like the biggest underdog of all. People aren't really expecting a whole lot out of him. He hasn't like won tournaments that are big time or anything like that. So I think that that's a tough one. That's a long shot. But Nerchio, like, this guy might be the best foreigner. Like, I know Neeb won the tournament, is doing really well, but Nerchio is right up there neck and neck with him. Whenever we talk about the very, very best outside of Korea, he's mentioned.
And he's very vocal about being one of the contenders and one of the guys who says that the gap between the Europeans and Americans and Koreans is not that big at all. And he talks the talk, but can he walk the walk is what we need to find out here. Tasteless.
You know, I like what you were talking about earlier with Poland always having good StarCraft players. It's kind of odd. You would never guess, if you didn't know much about StarCraft, that Poland would have such a huge history. But
why would you guess that?
What?
Why would you say that about Poland?
I mean, it's just, you know, it's
hard working with him sometimes.
you know, I'm like, well, it's just another country.
It's
like
not Korea. Socially, economically, they don't do as well as other countries.
It's not a huge country, but if you actually look back at the whole history of StarCraft, I mean, going all the way back to, you know, days like Draco and Brood War, they've always been really good, and not just with a few good players, but, you know, a bunch. And so with Nerchio going into this, I think he actually has a really good shot at actually taking some Koreans down, maybe even going all the way. We'll have to see.
And our first match, TY versus Nerchio. Let's talk a little bit about TY, Artosis. You've called him one of the best Terrans in the scene for a while now.
Yeah, this year he has really kicked it up a notch. Like, for instance, I would say that since Legacy of the Void came out, he's had more impact on the race of Terran than anyone else in the world. I mean, maybe Zest had some with that gross PvT, but, you know, really TY has kind of revolutionized how to play Terran. He's really like the father of using liberators correctly. His multitasking is out of control. He's probably the smartest Terran in the world as well. So, you know, this is a guy who I could absolutely see taking down the entire tournament.
Oh.
Wow, big words.
I actually agree with everything Dan said just now, but when he called a laser the biggest underdog of the entire tournament?
I think so, yeah.
Really?
Well, who would you say is the biggest underdog?
Violet?
That's
Violet,
fair too.
maybe
Well,
Petite Drogo.
2020 in hindsight, you know.
You know, a laser and Violet.
Good pick, isn't it? It's a pretty good pick.
Yeah, it's a safe pick there.
One thing we got to look at here
those
too is you brought it up in the previous series that the Korean Terrans are always going to be the true test.
Yes.
When it comes to the Nerchio, the Showtime, the Neebs, and this is going to be the first big test for Nerchio here. He's going up against a solid Korean Terran. Is he going to be able to do well? I guess we'll find out in a second. But TY is, as you were mentioning, he has had a very, very successful year.
Yeah, he's been on fire. Like, he's just so strong and so intelligent and fast and handsome and cool and funny. And
he's got it all, man.
You know?
But he
dodgeball,
everything.
He has the coolest red bicycle.
He's like
look, you got to remember, how long has this guy been playing in tournaments?
Say, yeah.
Okay. How old was he when he was first?
12,
like 13,
I
he was 12,
12,
right? 12 or 13.
Well, 13 Korean years.
Yeah, I think 13 Korean years, 12 Western years, Western age. But he's been doing this for so long. Even though this is obviously the biggest tournament of the year, with that much experience, I think he's going to be completely cool.
Fair enough, but of the foreigners that would also match him for experience, it is Nerchio.
Yeah.
For
That's
me,
true.
the more intriguing point is, like, I think they both have tremendous experience, but I do think of TY as one of those, like, Cerberus guard dogs at the gates of hell. Like, if you can get past this caliber of Korean Terran, and I know it sounds weird for perhaps more of kind of our casual audience, but the hardcore, I think, know what I'm talking about. Nerchio, though, is the player who, like, it's not going to be like the match we just saw, I feel. It's not going to be that bad of a mismatch. I actually think Nerchio has the multitasking. He has the defense in particular to do what it takes to come close here. We keep citing this, but he lost to Maru in that Kespa Cup kind of narrowly. And Maru, God, I keep mispronouncing his name.
Yeah.
Maru! It's actually a pretty cute name if we're being honest with ourselves. But that is another Terran on that short list of the absolute top Korean Terrans.
Well, with Nerchio, I think something that still surprises me today, and will surprise a lot of people at home as well, is that he's only recently gone full-time in StarCraft 2. And that's kind of, joined up with his results. I think he went full-time start of the year, roughly 12 months ago. And he has had an incredible year, an amazing year. He's had multiple top finishes. He's won a tournament himself. And here he is at the first time at the Global Finals, the first time to have the chance to play at BlizzCon.
He has the foreigner gear version where, like, we've talked about some of these Korean players that when they hit that indestructible mode, you're like, oh, wow, nobody can beat this guy.
Yeah.
Nerchio, for me, is one of the foreign players that has that ability. And I would say more so than even like a Neeblit or Showtime. Some of these other players that were like, these guys are absolutely the best. Yes, but they have a little bit more inconsistency. Nerchio can go 2 or 3 tournaments where you're like, he is head and shoulders in ZvZ, ZvT, and ZvP better than everyone he's playing against. Now, obviously, that's not super relevant right now because he's not going to be better than TY. Like, I'm not even going to spin that story.
Yeah.
Even an Artosis curse couldn't do that.
Artosis, I have a couple of things for you. When we saw Showtime win his tournament when he was playing against Nerchio in the finals, I remember you saying that you watched Nerchio play that first map, and you said that this is something unbelievable. He was playing god tier level. It was giving you nerd chills.
Yeah, back in tours, when we got to go to Todd's homeland, I saw his hometown. In fact,
His hometown.
When I saw Nerchio playing, even in the early rounds, I was just caught off guard because as soon as I saw it, I watched like all the Korean StarCraft. I'm like, okay, this guy's Codes level for sure. There isn't an argument. Like everything he does is just at that very top tier. And I mean, yeah, he lost a Showtime there, but from that moment until Neeb won Kespa Cup, I had the feeling that this guy was the best foreigner. And I mean, yeah, Neeb destroyed Kespa Cup, whereas he lost to Maru. So
Nerchio versus Neeblit at that tournament was one of the cooler matches I've ever seen, where I was like, both these guys are Code S level and playing at it, which is again a cool thing to say about foreigners because it's like this year is the first time we've ever had it.
Yeah, and look, Nerchio is so good. I am a little bit worried for him here though, because when you look at what his strengths are, like he is masterfully defensive. Like he will stop every single attack that comes. And we even saw that against Maru. He's like, no, I'll just hold on. Even if something goes wrong, he will hold on, he will stay alive. And the way he wins, right, is eventually you're broken by trying to break him.
Like Hive Tech,
Yeah, he'll get into the Ultras and you'll be like, oh, I have Marines and Marauders, I guess I lose. But the thing about TY is, if the aggression isn't working, he'll back up and play the longest macro game of anyone. Like he will turtle everything and you won't be able to kill him. So I think that TY's style actually matches up pretty well against Nerchio, but TY's style maybe isn't quite as aggressive as some others. So I think it should go late game almost no matter what.
That'd be cool.
Wise words. Final then predictions. Let's go across the broken couch here before we go to the casters.
I'm going to say TY is going to take it, but I also want to predict that this should be a very long series.
Cool.
I don't think this is going to end right away, so we should have a long, exciting match ahead of us.
Catch for that schedule. Yeah, Artosis.
Yeah, no, I think TY will take it. I think stylistically he's got the edge here and maybe skill just a little edge over Nerchio. But it should be long games and it should be like a really fun series. It's my pick for the day.
My brain agrees with these guys. I think it's TY, but my heart is hoping for yet another strong performance from a foreigner. And in a short best of 3, if there was a time for TY to lose a series, it would be the first series of the day against someone who's not super familiar with and of the caliber of Nerchio.
All right, well, I can see who you've chosen by the choice of color of your shirt. You've gone for Terran, and Taste has gone for Zerg. Artosis is staying true to Protoss in the middle here. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
I know he's going to.
All right, it's time to head to the casters for this one. It is TY versus Nerchio. It's just around the corner. We're excited. I hope you are as well.
The StarCraft 2 WCS Global Finals is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
It is time! We have another Terran going up against a Zerg here. TY versus Nerchio. Kev spent the whole first day without a Terran to cast. I am very glad to be here. TY is one of my favorite players, and he should be one of yours too.
And Nerchio is one of my absolute favorite Zergs in the whole wide world, not just in Europe. I've been casting this guy for so incredibly long, Nate. Even in 2011, at the very first time Nerchio ever made it to an offline event, back then the Battle.net European Invitational in Poland, he was there. That was his debut tournament. Didn't do that well, but it was obvious that this guy was going to be a star. He's been relevant for so long, even though this year he's been on an absolute roar and towards the later stages of Heart of the Swarm. He fell off a tiny bit, but Nerchio has been so damn good for so long. Couldn't be more excited for this match.
Yeah, this should be awesome, guys. TY versus Nerchio. The game has begun. We are ready to rock and roll. In the southeast position of King Sejong Station, we have the Zerg player from Poland. He's Nerchio. And his opponent in the northwest, the blue Terran coming all the way from Korea, he's TY!
Feeling it, mate. I'm feeling it too. I think it's going to be a great series. I like this first map as well. I think this is one of the rougher maps that we are going to see for Nerchio in this first series. We all know why it can be incredibly difficult to secure your fort base. I do think ever since Zerg started working on the rocks very early on and instead trying to take the left bottom side of the map or trying to take the base in the middle, they often take the base on the right side. And I feel like it makes it a little bit easier to be comfortable and be stabilized on 4 bases while relying on quite a few queens to shut down drops and all the other stuff the Terran can throw at you.
Yeah, what makes this series so cool to me is that neither of these players are autopilot. When I think about a guy like Bjorn TVZ, you know, 2-on-1 rings out to me. He's going to do this build. He's going to execute it good enough to kill anybody. But what I love about TY, and he's shown it in recent matches, you know, I watched the series of him against True, and he busted out an extremely tailored build to completely deal with all the aggression that he threw his way. He had a very smart strategy built around it and an awesome push to finish and take that game because he knew what to anticipate, and he's a very intelligent player who can adjust his build orders on the fly. For this matchup, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a pretty straightforward TVZ style, but that's what makes Nerchio so good, is that he's very strong against this. And actually, I get to eat my words very quickly, he's going straight for the Reaper into the factory, so already diversifying his strategies from what we've seen of the Terran play here this week.
Reaper is going to make its way across the map. Of course, I'm curious to see what kind of a Nerchio are we going to see today. I think the boys on the couch, did a very good job in analyzing and kind of picking his playstyle apart. We know that Nerchio is incredibly good in defending almost any sort of push, whether it's 2-base, 3-base, or just very multitask focused. Nerchio is often everywhere at once. I like this move already. He's hiding the drone for a split second. Should make it a little bit easier for Nerchio to go up to 3 hatcheries. Doesn't have to worry that much about this Reaper, even though this Reaper is already getting some nice work done, picking up 2 kills.
Yeah, actually quite a bit of damage. You really have to be careful about that Reaper as far as keeping your third base from getting blocked. So it's very good that he's able to get the drone over there. Meanwhile, TY, like I said, he will do things differently. Instead of that very fast double barracks that we see from almost every single Terran every game, he's going for Hellions. He doesn't seem to be worried about any fast roach push of any kind. He wants map control that the Hellions can give. Since this is a metagame where most Terrans are only opening up with a lot of Marines, you see not as many Lings being necessary. You don't have to worry about the Hellions getting you. And sometimes that means you're a little bit more vulnerable to things like, you know, ye old 4GG run by straight into your natural. So that's one thing that's going to be very important to keep tabs on. But also this starport on the Tech Lab, we did see this come back a little bit in the latest seasons of GSL and Star League, where we have some cloaked Banshee play coming in, and I do love to see this as well, because this will also neutralize any aggressive follow-up to a Hellion opening, you know, something like Roaches or any other fast push, because Banshees just have that sustained damage. They can really deal very well with these units on the ground.
I like this already as well. He's going to send the Reaper into the main base. Nerchio's going to pay attention, like, hey, what's in my main? Ah, it's the Reaper, and then surprise, 4 Hellions in the natural.
Oh, baby! Yeah, that's that 4GG thing we were just joking about. Gets right into the natural.
Oh my God.
Completely blindsided by 4 Hellions. An uncharacteristic strategy that we do not see used anywhere near as often as the old days. And because of that, you're not always keeping your queens in a position to block the front wall. You don't have 2 evolution chambers with that Roach Warren to limit the surface area to enter your natural. And because of that, 14 drones, already a huge, a monstrous pickup to get this early in the game for a Terran against a Zerg who loves to play macro as much as Nerchio does. He doesn't have anything that he can follow up aggressively with because TY is going for siege tanks and Marines back home.
There are 2 queens, and Cloak is not done yet. I think by the time that Cloak is done, that Spore Crawler should be done as well. So at least Nerchio is not going to lose that many drones against the Banshee. But I don't even think in the wildest dreams of TY was he going to kill 14 drones with these Hellions. I think if he was gonna like get 7 or 8 or even 9, I think he would have been incredibly happy and satisfied with that already.
And it's pretty normal that when you throw those Hellions away, you follow with a Banshee. The Banshee's supposed to get a bit of damage done because your Hellions don't normally get 14 drones. So what I like is that he's using the Banshee to also scout. He has all the information. There's no lair, just a Roach Warren, a couple of queens. He could keep this Banshee at the front of the creep area and just also deny the spreading with that as well.
Yeah, and even though it looked like this Banshee may not have done that much, it's 2 drones and 3 more drones, because 3 drones morphed into 3 Spore Crawlers, so that's going to slow this economy of Nerchio down even further. Nerchio already making a couple of Roaches. He doesn't know exactly what's happening on the other side of the map. Hasn't seen a 3rd CC yet. I think the Overlord is close, so he may be able to see it soon. But 1 Spore and 1 Queen is not going to be enough here. There's a good chance that TY is going to find a few more holes in the defense of Nerchio.
Yep, he's been able to really stymie the growth of Nerchio. 46 SCVs plus those mules. Hellions get by into the 3rd. Again, grab a few more workers. At this phase of the game, you're not really worried about having that Hellion army as much, but even more drones, 3 more getting snapped up by these Banshees. One of them very close to getting picked off, but will be able to escape. Keep in mind, since the lair's not done yet, there's no Overseer, there's no mobile detection at all. And I think what TY can do right now, since his 3rd base just finished the orbital transformation, bring the Banshees home, clear out any Lings that are here, plant down that 3rd, get the saturation going, and we see that he has 1-1 and stem on the way. He's going to just follow this up with a big bio push. And honestly, as long as he doesn't make too many mistakes in his macro, he has built a substantial lead that he can use to get a very nice push that will keep Nerchio from being able to take a 4th base.
Yep, pushes like that are always very hard to deal with, especially if you have a rough early game, and that has absolutely been the case for Nerchio. Over 20 drones has gone down in this game. He was forced to make a couple of defensive structures as well, and obviously Spore Crawler is not going to help out that much against the bio push. I think the first time that TY decides to walk across the map, it's already going to be incredibly impressive if Nerchio can somehow push that army back, because he just had a disastrous early game. There's no other way to put it.
Yep, he's kept some of these Hellions alive as well, which is so useful since you usually aren't able to take the towers as easily. Kind of have your Marines all over. I mean, both these Hellions are kind of close, not quite there, just a little bit further. Can't use the tower from the low ground, sadly.
he tried, but at least he knows there's nothing there, because the Ling would have probably run around, unless it was on hold
maybe.
position 8.
Yeah.
Scan goes down in the main, and TY sees absolutely nothing, or at least nothing he hasn't seen before with the Banshees. That fourth base is indeed going down on the right side, but if you just look at the army right now, 58 against 47, Stim is done, 1-1 upgrades are finishing up. I'm not sure if Nerchio can keep this base alive. Yes, he has quite a few roaches. I don't think he has a single Ravager yet. It's going to be really hard to deal with this.
Ooh, yeah, he can just use these tanks to wail away on these roaches in the middle of the map. Nerchio's like, okay, I got to go back. I don't have a Spire. I'm going for the Infestation Pit, but without any, really fast anti-air, these tanks can poke and prod, and when the medvacs get low, okay, they can go home. But even the Queens could take some damage from this, and TY is just getting a feel. It's like, okay, well, you're basically got Roach Queen. You're probably going to try to go up to Hive off of this, or maybe a big Roach Ravager Infester attack. But either way, he has a window with all of these units, and now he's moving into Liberators with Combat Shield finishing. He could make a huge push that I'm not sure Nerchio could stop.
And of course, it becomes really hard to push out creep, right? Now, these Queens are burning energy and a couple of transfusions here and there, and it just makes it a lot harder. And Nerchio is absolutely going to need some creep on the right side if he wants to keep that fourth base protected. The tanks are on the high ground now, getting a hit off as well on a couple of these drones. TY just being incredibly annoying so far, and Nerchio's just not ready. Nerchio's going for some sort of a Roach counterattack. He somehow avoided all the units on the left side, but the Banshee is going to show up now. That was kind of weird. Like, what are those Roaches doing over there, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it feels like you want to try to pull the Terran back, assuming that they're out on the map, but most of TY's army...
He's not going to have anything here.
Yeah, most of TY's army is still home. He's got this double medevac drop towards the south side. Keep in mind, that's an extremely vulnerable Infestation Pit, and it's another tech structure as well that's exposed right there. I think that might be a Hydralisk Den. So the third base is going to die. He could lose both of these techs, and he's just ripping this base to shreds.
Yep, few more drones going down. Hydra then taking quite a bit of damage, and let's not forget about that fourth hatchery on the right side. A lot of drones are very exposed now. Both Queens getting picked off. He gets both bases. Oh my god, this is a clinic of how to play TVZ so far, Nate.
Yeah, TY has just done such a smart thing with the way his harass is extremely powerful, whilst not, giving up any chance to lose the lead that he built from all those drone kills early on. He's like, I'm going to macro up. I'm going to reach an army where roaches are completely useless. At this point, Roach Ravager is not going to trade well without some extremely good fungals and biles or ultralisks. But when you've taken this much damage, you can't get those. Look at this army. How is he going to stop this?
TY has lost almost nothing in this game. His army is ridiculously big. He's almost maxed out. 9 minutes and 45 seconds into the game. That is the third hatchery that has gone down in this game.
The Banshees are sniping the Infestors. He just killed all the Infestors before the fight even happened.
I mean, the Liberators will fall to Corrosive Bile, but TY's army is still so incredibly big, and he probably knows he doesn't even really have to commit anymore because he already did so much damage. But why not? Just because his army is so incredibly strong, there isn't really much he has to worry about.
You can finish this Terran versus Terran style. Drop all your tanks in your opponent's face, stim, A move. Without Infestors, Roaches are not going to be able to handle this army on their own. He could go wherever he wants. Just don't take it too slow. Don't give too much time to recover. That supply lead, the upgrades that he has, like everything right now for TY. Maybe he wants to wait for his 2-2, but I don't think he needs to. Nerchio's going to collapse on this army, and he is not going to be able to stop this force of Marine Marauder Siege tank.
Nope. Fighting off creep is, of course, always a dream for Terran. GG is called, and an incredibly one-sided first game here as TY just had everything going for himself.
Yeah, it's one of those scenarios where if you are Nerchio, after you lose those drones, you have to hope that TY is going to make mistakes. You have to hope that he's going to get supply blocked or forget an upgrade or forget a production structure, get caught off guard by something. But TY made the choice to be pretty passive with his main army. He waited until he had 180 supply before he made that big move out, and that really shows he wanted to keep his focus on his macro. He wanted to make sure that he didn't slip up and suddenly get stuck, at 140 supply and not be able to build the army that he needs. As long as he just kept going at a solid pace, he was always going to be able to have a better and stronger army.
I mean, from the beginning of the end, this was perfect for TY. The Hellions getting so much damage done. The Banshee follow-up, it didn't look incredibly successful at first, but there was a lot of indirect damage because of the 4 Spore Crawlers. And then when the second Banshee showed up, still got a couple of additional kills where we're looking at 23, 24 drone kills. He kept both Banshees alive as well, so any sort of a Roach counterattack isn't all that intimidating because obviously Roaches are never going to kill the Banshees. And then he has the tanks pushing back the creep, the tanks being annoying on the high ground, and at the same time there are 2 medevacs that just fly on the left side of the map. Nerchio did not see it. Nerchio's Roaches were out of position. He lost both bases at once, and yeah, I mean, that was game.
And the other side effect of all of this defensive setup that he has, not only are the Banshees going to stop the Roaches from pushing, but because he doesn't just extend his army out at 120 supply or anything like that, there's no opportunity for Nerchio to try to throw roaches in the third. There's no opportunity to Ling run by the natural or try to stop the fourth base because TY's army is right there every step of the way. When you are so far ahead that you can just sit there, max out, and go kill the other guy, it is extremely difficult to overcome that as Nerchio. Going to New Gettysburg for the next map, it's going to be a little bit better of a map matchup-wise for the Zerg player, so hopefully Nerchio can capitalize on this. Of course, King Sejong Station is a really good map for Terran against Zerg, so maybe we'll see something a little bit different. If he doesn't take that early damage, I do expect a much better game out of him.
One thing is for sure, Nate, we may only have 2 Terrans here so far, but these 2 Terrans are incredibly good and are among the favorites to take down the entire tournament. As we're getting ready for Game 2 between TY and Nerchio. It is going to be played on New Gettysburg. Let's see if things get better for the Polish Zerg.
Yep, he is in the southeast position, representing Neuronix Gaming. Can he take the series back even? Give it up for Nerchio! And his opponent, the Terran, leading the series. One of 2 Terrans in the top 16. Can he get his way out onto the main stage? Give it up for TY!
It does not happen often that there is one race very underrepresented, you know, only 2 players out of the 16, but yet everybody looks at these 2 as potential candidates to just take the entire thing down. I don't think too many people would be surprised if the brackets allow it, that the final is going to be TY versus Beyond. Of course, you know, there's so many good players in this tournament, so it's never going to be easy, but I can't really think of many players that are a favorite against either of these 2 Terrans.
Yeah, it's been such a weird thing to see, you know, a lot of the top Terran players throughout the year that were extremely successful in team leagues, guys like Maru and Innovation, just couldn't quite make it happen in individual leagues. So you don't end up seeing them here, but the thing is, for a lot of these players that we've talked about, Terran has been like the weakness. We look at a guy like Neeb, who, you know, at least personally, you think you could beat almost anybody, but can they stop the Terrans? That's been his weakness throughout this season, throughout this year. So it's such a tough thing to say, like, who could beat these guys? They've both played very well. Of course, this series is not over yet. If Nerchio doesn't lose 14 drones to 4 Hellions, we could see something completely different out of him. Yeah. So that's going to be, to me, the most interesting part of this game. Can he withstand that early pressure and force TY to do something other than just sit back and macro up?
Yep, losing a couple of workers is always very frustrating at first, but if you lose 14 in the beginning of the game, it almost doesn't really matter what happens anymore, unless the Zerg is just clearly better than the Terran and can somehow, some way find a way to crawl back into the game. But TY is too solid for that. He's not going to leave, you know, room for those mistakes. He's not going to give you the opportunity to make an easy comeback. But like you said, you know, this is a fresh new game for Nerchio. It's important to just forget about that game. Obviously a disastrous start. I was looking at his point of view, by the way, and the Overlords were incredibly close to spotting the Hellions, but he never saw it. If he would have moved it 1 inch towards the north, one of the Overlords would have spotted the 2 Hellions waiting, and then obviously if you see 2 Hellions just chill in the natural, there's always a good chance that Hellion number 3 and 4 are on the way as well. So it's safe to say that Nerchio got maybe a tiny bit unlucky or just messed up. You know, it's one of these minor mess-ups that actually had, you know, great consequences.
Yep, one other thing I love about the way that TY plays, it's something that makes it difficult for his opponents, is he has extreme range as well, but he's not always going to stick to the same thing. This opening looks a little bit closer to something that we saw him do against True recently, where he just had a very good setup with the fast Marines. He could get a quick bunker out, and he'll either go for a quick Widow Mine with this Starport going for a Medivac, or if he sees anything that makes him think he needs to be defensive, he'll also go for a fast Siege Tank. And with this fast third command center, he's taking a little bit of the pressure off as far as needing to do damage, because he's saying, you didn't get the fastest third hatchery ever, which means as long as you don't kill me, a command center this quick puts me in a solid position no matter what. And we see that bunker go down at the front. We see the Widow Mine and just this constant SCV production. TY wants to play the game his way, and I love that. He's very different from some of the builds you're going to see from a lot of other Terrans, and it makes him a bit more refreshing to watch.
Now, the last few times, or at least a couple of times that I saw TY on this map, he played mech. Do you think that's an option here?
Honestly, I wasn't sure if he was going to go for that setup on the last map. That was the game against True, where he was able to get that awesome push with quite a few Thors. So it's something that you could very well do on this map. The open area is something that's always going to be a little bit dangerous, though, if your opponent can get you with a huge roach concave. You don't have as many choke points to work with, but you do have a lot of high ground positions for your bases. So personally, I don't mind mech on New Gettysburg. TY is one of the only guys that you're going to see do it, and you know, innovation strategies don't really count. They're not quite normal mech.
First medevac is making its way across the map. Nerchio is sending an Overlord into the main base, but he's gonna send it back. He didn't see yet what he was hoping for. I don't think he saw the third command center. He didn't really see the rest of the setup. There's going to be a Viking as a follow-up, so this Viking will obviously take care of the Overlords, and it's going to make it even harder for Nerchio to scout what he's truly up against.
Yep, and that's extremely important because, you know, I've actually studied this build quite a bit as this drop heads inside of the main base with that Widow Mine. Gonna get 4 drones, saves the Marines, gonna be making the way out. That Queen shouldn't be able to get the medevac if it boosts. No, so back to what you were just saying, Kev, this is the build. He has the gases in the natural expansion. I would not be surprised at all to see him drop 2 factories or go for 2 armories. This setup is incredibly difficult to break. The most difficult thing he has to be concerned about, but maybe won't be as much of a problem with this damage, is just not taking damage from a counterattack as he tries to get his third base up. That's going to be the most important thing. He gets this medevac. TY makes great use of medevacs to move his siege tanks around so that the immobility of mech style is not as much of a hindrance to him, but he could still drop 2 E-bays and begin stim at any point, so it remains to be seen. There's the extra factory. All right, it's going to be mech.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I also felt it was already kind of a small indicator that he went up to 3 bases that fast. Of course, you can still play bio from that point, but since he did so incredibly well with a slightly faster aggression in the previous map, there's almost no reason to at least try to do that again to some degree. Now, of course, this is a very different map, and it's harder to get the same amount of damage done, but I just had a feeling that this is what we were going to look at. Nerchio's setup, however, is so much better this game. He took a little bit of damage against that first drop, but 4 drones, it's not nice, but it's really not going to set you back as much as 14 drones in a much earlier stage of the game.
And this is such a weird thing because not only is Nerchio facing this pressure, he's got a lot of roaches, he's got a lot of units to deal with this. He'll drop the bios, tanks are going to be pulled back, but he sees Marine tank medevac. And since he didn't get the scout inside of that main base, it's also possible that there ends up being a misread here. Maybe against mech, he would want to go for a much faster hive tech to get Vipers out or something like Broodlords. But in this scenario, it kind of looks like a normal Bio-Terran build because he didn't get inside of that main base. So TY's got the armory on the way. He's adding on his 4th and 5th factory. A lot of Hellions. I love seeing this. And TY is so good at using medevacs with mech. Like man, this is the way I like to play just because I love watching him do this.
And I mean, obviously, when you make it so hard for your opponent to spread creep across the map, it's going to be very hard for Roaches and Ravagers eventually to get the fight that the Zerg player is looking for against this composition. On creep, it becomes a whole lot easier to deal with these heavy units from Terran than it is off creep. Off creep becomes borderline impossible, at least to attack into the Terran.
Yep. One of the toughest things that you usually run into on this map when you try this style is securing the third, but TY has kept the pressure up so well, he got it completely uncontested. Now this army's going to move out, but guess what this doesn't have, Kev? There's no anti-air. He could just move these tanks around, he can reposition his defenses, and one of the things that's supposed to make Ravagers okay versus mech, look how many medevacs TY uses. This guy changed the way that you play it.
Sorry, he's getting 7 Drop-A-Lords. This is old school Nerchio. You remember Gamescom when he used to do this against MVP, when MVP played his mech style? He's just going to drop all of his roaches on top of the mech units of TY. Does TY have any anti-air? Are there missile turrets set up?
This is what is so intriguing here. So he's going to realize this is happening. It's important to note, though, he can reposition these units that get dropped on top of. It's going to be a drop micro battle between the 2 of them, trying to push on these tanks. It's not, MVP couldn't reposition his tanks instantly with dropships.
I mean, 114 army supply for Nerchio, +1 is done against the 77 of TY. Everything is quite clumped up. Here we go, Nate.
He's going to try to drop straight on top, but there are so many Hellbats with this army. An unsieged tank DPS. It's insane. Look, he picks up the one at the 3rd base. He doesn't have to worry about this. He can trade out SCVs. Mech's about that gas. As long as he doesn't lose his army, he is A-OK. So many of these units dying. The Viking picking away at these full Overlords. He's going to get one with 4 roaches inside. He's forced to unload, and TY's army remains untouched. 8 SCVs completely pushes this attack back. No problemo.
Wow, he made it look easy. I definitely thought that was going to be a little closer. Nerchio kept a lot of the units inside of the drop alert, looking for a better position, but in the end he was never going to find that position. That one Viking did some serious work. Actually, he shoots down one of the overlords that had a couple of units inside of it, but Nerchio once again will unload just in time. But like you said, TY and his Medivacs and his tank, it's ridiculous. I don't think he's lost a single tank yet, and he has done so much damage.
It's so cool. Gumiho and Innovation made this dropship with mech thing look good in TVT, and TY is making it look insane in TVZ. The last time I saw this, I was talking about it was true, but now you get also all the other benefits of playing mech. You got the Hellbat drop, 6 drones picked off, all of these siege tanks flying around. Mutalisks, well, you could always go into Thors. Liberators are an option. You don't need the Medivacs to fight the army. And at the same time, anything else anti-air, well, Hydralisks, well, they haven't gotten that big buff yet that's on the way, Kev.
So far, TY has lost 1,800 resources. Nerchio has lost 6,300. Those numbers are insane.
Ooh.
Crossball will connect with one of the Medivacs, but it will not kill it. It's just another flawless game so far of TY. He didn't have the phenomenal start, but he's showing us that he doesn't need to have another phenomenal start to play an awesome game, which is exactly what he's doing.
I love this style so much. TY running a clinic on how to properly play mech in Legacy of the Void against Zerg. This is not the boring sit back and do nothing. He has been in Nerchio's face the entire game, and he is getting ready. He's getting ready to make the death push. Look at this giant army. A big roach counterattack is going to try to hit him. This could be Nerchio's opportunity to get some work done. He's already going to pull SCVs. He needs to rally his production inside of his main base and just keep his base intact. But there are so many siege tanks and Hellbats. Now there's Hydralisks on the map, but there's plenty to buffer for these tanks as they advance forward.
I do think it's smart by Nerchio that he's going for the counterattack. I almost feel like that was his best option, because just running into this army when it's all set up.
Attacking this was not going to do you any favors.
Oh, he needs to be more careful though with his own units on the right side of the map. He did a good job in evacuating a couple of the drones.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, it looks kind of even, but the biggest problem is his army of TY is probably not going to die unless he too starts messing up, as a couple of Hellbats were split up from the rest of the pack. These drones, Nate?
Ooh, these drones, he can see them. He has the missile turrets very close by, but I think TY feels like he can stop this attack going into his base. So he's moving SCVs out to try and make sure he can also help repair this force. Great catch on those units. TY just needs to keep moving as quickly as he can. The one thing that Nerchio doesn't have that would really help against this is Vipers, but most of the SCVs have actually been cleaned out for TY, trying to get him away from there. He got the Hive, but it's just siege tanks. Now Liberators coming out to help stop the roaches.
Yep, there is still a couple of units dancing in the middle of the map. There is that fort base, but that fort base that normally is a planetary fortress is this time just an orbital. Nerchio has way more workers, so from this point on you could say that every second that goes by is honestly not all that bad for Nerchio, as so many SCVs have died. I love the stutter step here in the middle of the map.
He uses the Medivacs, repositions, he cuts him off, he forces him to go towards the top left, and he's going to try to basically just catch this army, block it into the corner, and finish it off. We do have Vipers on the way. These are extremely important, but at this rate, with the size of this army, it's going to be, with how open this map is, he should be able to dodge blinding clouds, and he can also use the Medivacs to move sieged tanks in and out of them as well.
Nerchio did end up losing all of these units, but not before taking down 2 more tanks. He's getting Burrow as well. I think that's kind of a cool move, because there's a good chance that TY is going to drop a lot of Mews, as he has lost so many SCVs. Only 30 remain for now. Army supply 85 against 70 is, needless to say, not great for Nerchio, but with Vipers, with Blinding Cloud, and maybe even some super fancy Burrow play, it looks a lot better than it did 3 minutes ago, Nate.
Yeah, this situation is getting a bit better, right? He did the big counterattack, which messed up a lot of the income for TY. Even though his army is so big, he's just trying to abuse the immobility of it. This is an open map. Surprised Nerchio didn't break up in some of the rocks towards the center positions, just so he'd have a few more paths to maneuver around. But TY has a drop, it looks like, going inside of the main base. He's got a couple Hellbats, and that main army is just chilling by the 4th.
2 Queens should be able to take care of this. It's kind of frustrating, but the one Medivac does take quite a bit of damage. Roaches are coming
Queen
to
barbecue.
reinforce. It should be fine. I don't think these Hellbats will be able to do a whole lot. And Nerchio is respreading his creep, which I think is incredibly important.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that's always going to buy you time. Drops one Hellbat, one Hellion. The Hellion can chase these drones as they line up and also seize the Vipers. These are incredibly important. But the biggest strength, or one of the biggest strengths of this, is all in the Medivacs. He can reposition tanks that are sieged very quickly. Blinding Cloud, it's strong, it's very powerful, but you can just pick the tank up that gets Blinding Cloud, move it out, and you only need about half these tanks to be shooting to destroy this army.
Well, attacking into this is going to be very hard. The tank count is very high, but he's just going to use a couple of abducts for now.
I like the abduct. There's not a Viking count here to really threaten this. Of course, as the Viking count rises, you have an increased risk of being hit with Parasitic Bomb. But he's content to just sit back and macro up as hard as possible.
What's nice as well for Nerchio is that +2 finished up during all that madness, and now he's even getting +1 carapace, which is about to be done. So his army is really starting to be a lot more capable of going up against this super powerful and intimidating looking army of TY, especially because of these Vipers. I mean, we all know how incredibly useful Abduct can be in scenarios like this.
Yeah. Abduct is insanely important because it will also get the Liberators out of their siege mode, which will open up some other opportunities for running into this army.
Very, very good run by here, though, by TY, picking up a couple of... Wow, he's getting a couple of free tanks here. Medevac's going to try to save the day. That does not happen. He could abduct one more time to get the Medevac as well. So that looked good for TY, as getting 10 drones with these Hellions was awesome, but losing 3 tanks, that's kind of painful, because he's still... Well, he's at 54 SCVs now. He rebuilt roughly 20 more after that crazy base trade happened. But,
yeah,
you know, he doesn't have the dream economy.
Yeah, the Vipers are the playmaker unit against mech. You have the ability to pull those siege to tanks. You're not going to dive your medevac into Hydralisks to pick the tank up. Now that there's a good Hydra count, it becomes extremely difficult to play around this. The Vikings are enough to one-shot, though. There's the Abducts to pull the Vikings into the Hydralisks, but really what matters is you can just trade the Vikings out for the Vipers. You need to get rid of those. They are the biggest threat to your army.
You know what I'm very surprised by is that TY didn't take care of that Overlord that's dropping his potential other fort base. As one more Liberator does get picked off, one Viper will fall in the process though, but it's very nice for Nerchio to just have that Overlord there so he exactly knows what TY is working with.
I really feel like Nerchio's done a great job of buying himself a new lease on life with that base trade earlier on. Like, that was a playmaking moment. If he had tried to engage that mech army, TY would have demolished him, but now Nerchio sits in a pretty comfortable supply position. He has all the Hive tech that he could want. I'm surprised he hasn't made a move towards anything else, but he feels that Roach Hydra Viper is the answer here. And I'm curious to see what other adjustments are made for TY.
Yeah, that Overlord on the left top side got finally taken down, so that should give Nerchio a good indication as well that TY is going to try to secure this base. And Nerchio probably also knows that the other bases of TY are pretty much dry. So I think if Nerchio makes a big push on that base or on the other one via the north side of the map, there is a very good chance that TY is going to be incredibly broke soon.
I think Nerchio's realized how useful the Vipers are. He now has 10 of them on the map, abducting these siege tanks into his forces, gets 3. Even the Vikings are at a high risk. He's just going to pull half of them in instantly to the Hydralisks. There are no armor upgrades for the mech force, so they are taking an extreme amount of damage.
Thanks a tiny bit of exposed. Missile turret is making this a little bit harder though, but 2 more tanks will fall. Actually, wow, he picked up one.
So he's brought the Viper count down to 8. There are 2 more on the way. These Hydras continuing to poke forward, and he's not one-shotting these Hydras because he's spread the tanks out. There's such a wide area to cover, and Nerchio is picking TY apart.
The execution is so good from Nerchio in the last 4 or 5 minutes. Remember that statistic in the beginning of the game where Nerchio lost like 6,500 resources and TY only lost 1,300? Right now,
the harvest.
Nerchio still lost more. But it's obviously a lot better for Nerchio because instead of being on 3 bases trying to secure his fort, he has everything.
He has all the bases now, majority of them. I think
Plus
he's just
3?
got that inside one. Yep, +3 is now finished. Drilling Claws, I'm not sure. Maybe he's going to try the Widowmine drop. I've seen this a few times. It's a bit hard to execute. These Abducts are just going to continue to rip into this force. Some of the Vipers die, but once that tank count drops low enough, these Hydras and Roaches will engage.
Yeah, they're actually quite low on energy now. TY's I have to be careful with those medevacs carrying tanks as well.
There's still 13 tanks available, though, so this is not going to be that attack into this anytime soon. It's a war of attrition. You want to starve him out. That's actually really crazy because he still has 5 drop overlords. I don't know if he realizes that. But
That's pretty funny. It's like,
get that money, Roddy.
Can't land. Well, I'll land in the corner. I'll still drop some mules. It's going to give me something. Obviously, TY is going to have a hard time dropping all of the other mules at just one base anyways.
Nidus is going to be the other option as well. He's built forward evolution chambers to get energy for these Vipers.
Overlord is heading towards the main base. Would be awesome to get a Nidus down there and just get right on top of all these production facilities. That's 4 factories,
Even the drops won't be able to get there in time. He comes up to the high ground to try and deny mining, pulls up the Vikings. The Vikings actually not that close to the Hydras, so they're going to get a few of these Vipers here. And this is nice because he's going to force the Vipers to go back. They all have to consume, get more energy again. We have the Overlord dumping here. And yeah, where's the Nidus? Where's it going to be? That's the big question right now.
I think he's going to have to go back for a split second.
He's like, I'll build a turret underneath. Get out of here. Oh, and there it is in the bottom left corner. I think the refinery should be able to see that. Yeah, he has vision of it.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think TY is looking at that.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
He knows there is an Overlord there, but he's got bigger things to worry about with Vipers abducting all of his tanks and Vikings.
The Nidus has finished. Yeah, he's got 5 Roaches and a Hydralisk inside of his main base. They can start to work away on some of these add-ons. Even with Drilling Claws, I mean, he's not going to be able to stop the endless torrent of units that can come out of this. He needs to get these tanks in position, sieged up, and even then he's still going to lose add-ons, which the Overlord could prevent being rebuilt by dropping creep there. So this is such a tense moment. He has to cover so many different areas. The left side base gets picked off by Nerchio. He's really pulling TY in every which direction.
Yeah, he's losing a lot of units in this process though, and I would have loved to see the Nidus being executed a little bit faster right on top of the production. Does get the medevac and the tank there. Wow, these Roaches actually took care of those 2 tanks and the Withermines that are there as well. At the same time, TY is trying to do some damage on the other side of the map as he's getting a couple of drones.
He's trying to rebuild his add-ons. They're being instantly destroyed again.
Is there like any mining now for TY? I mean, I guess he has the mules on the...
He's got the mules on the island. That should be about...
I mean, this base is pretty much dry.
The bases are running out. He can float his natural over. His natural actually wasn't mining gas for a while, so there's probably still a good bit of gas there since the base trade killed the refineries there. Yeah, he's got about 1,000 gas left to mine from his natural. He doesn't want to float that one away.
Man, Nerchio's macro and decision-making this game has been top-notch. He looked like he was almost dead. It really looked like it was just another one-sided game, and if he would have ran into that army, it would have been, but the counterattack just really turned this game upside down.
Yeah, 8 Hydras dropped onto that island base. Should be more than enough to shut it down. The Vikings need to get these Vipers. They're going to push through, but there's so many. You can't even try to stop. You can't even try to focus fire them all down. The tanks pull one of those siege tanks out of the fire. There are so many, so spread out, but 8 Hydras. This command center should be picked off before it can escape. Nerchio denying economy left and right, and he can also take this drop into the main if he really wants to as well.
Yep, that's awesome. Right now there is basically one mining base for TY, and that's the base he just secured in the middle. You know, south of the middle, I guess, sort of. I mean, he can mine from the other one. It's almost done anyway. On the left top side, he just lost that orbital there. He's going to scan. He will see that Nerchio is still active with units running around. Nerchio's playing great. He really stepped it up in the last 12-13 minutes of this game.
Yeah,
insane.
He pulled it together so well after that big base trade. Now he's got the Hydras inside of the main. He killed the turrets. He can go for the add-ons, the factories. Once again, this northwest base taking a little bit more damage. Not that that's been what's being mined from, but the biggest issue right now for TY is that he has not been able to deal with the Vipers. If you're not going to use the Thors, like he needs tanks because he's hemorrhaging those. You can try to use Thors in their single target mode because they have more range, but those are also going to get abducted. The Viking count needs to be big enough that he can basically just hit a few times or get Ravens to try and use point defense drone. But at this point, his income has been also hurt so badly that even doing that is extremely difficult.
Yeah, Nerchio, I think there's only one thing he has to be a tiny bit careful about, is that he doesn't mine out everything that he's currently mining from, because most of his bases will start running a little dry as well. Obviously, the one on the north side is still kind of fresh, but the other ones, you know, a couple of them are pretty dry, but he could eventually secure the gold, and I think that's exactly what he's doing right now.
He's taking the gold right now. He's going to push to this center position base for TY, focusing down the command center. He will get it. Eats a few shots, but with the amount of income he has, it's not as much of an issue. He's pulling in 1,000 gas a minute, over 2,000 minerals. TY, he's making a couple hundred.
I really don't think he's mining right now. I mean, other than a little bit of long distance mining, but he doesn't have one active base. Like, that's a mute. There's a couple of SCVs, long distance mining in between like 1,000 widow mines, so they feel safe. Nerchio is going to look for another opening, trying to get a few more tanks. And he's, oh, wow. Did you see that pickup? That was a super hot pickup.
Yep. He's been trying to save these tanks, but the thing is, unless you can get enough of them to actually blow this army to bits at once, it's not going to work. His army actually needs to be together to fight against this because it's not been a Blinding Cloud-based army. It's been Abduct, which is just pulling apart a siege line. And I think TY is realizing this. He has to make a move. He has to move out to the center. This could be where something like a Blinding Cloud gets extremely tough to deal with. Of course, it does not affect the Widow Mine, so I love that he's keeping them in front of the tank line.
Nerchio's macro has been so insane. Even though he's been losing a lot of units in all these trades, he's always maxed out. He always has 10, 15 roaches on the production tab. Never started to run low on Vipers when he truly needed them. He should be able to keep the gold alive, and even if he loses the gold, I'm sure that he can clean up this army and just do it all over again.
Yeah.
These tanks are actually quite exposed now. There are no Vipers here, but does he really need them?
Well, with the tank line, if these Hydras continue to push in, he should be able to get a little bit more work done, but all of the Widow Mines are now on their cooldown. They get a few of the shots on the Vipers. Hydras continuing to attack. The tank line is backed up by 3 more sieged up. Yeah, once that Overseer pops, a lot of Widow Mines are going to die, and there's still so many Vipers.
That's a very, very useful pickoff because we all know how badly things can snowball once you don't have detection. And it's a couple of mines, but if they all shoot 2 or 3 times, suddenly your army disappears and you wonder where it all went wrong.
And Nerchio's macro, insane. He has been spending every single mineral and gas that he has been collecting throughout this game. He's as broke as TY, but he is actually making money. TY was able to land that center base. He bought himself some time, but the Vipers are back, picking off a few more of these units. The Widow Mines are really heavily contributing here since he's not bringing Overseers, but it doesn't matter because by the time the Vikings kill these Vipers, the Roach Hydras killed everything else. GG!
Wow, what a comeback by Nerchio here. Game number 2 on New Gettysburg. Nate, at one point in this game, I thought this series was done. I was like, wow, that was another painful TVZ series where it was just all Terran from the beginning of Game 1 towards the end of Game 2. But Nerchio's counterattack with the Roaches, it looked like, yeah, that's the best thing you can do, but it's probably not going to be enough. Well, it was, because it just turned this game crazy. And I think the key point there, Nate, was not just what he did with the counterattack, but it was that he was able to evacuate almost all of his drones. You remember that weird route that he took via the north side, sent them all the way towards the Zelnaga watchtower, and then they came back via the middle. The tanks that were sieged just unsieged, and Nerchio keeping all of these drones alive allowed him to actually have a real economy once things settled down. And TY, I wouldn't say he had to start from scratch, but he had like 35 SCVs, you know. And yes, orbital commands are great, but it's still going to take a while.
Yeah, a lot of it is so badly hurt by the way that he pushes out, and then there was something going on. He was, maybe it was because he was maxed out, or he was just barely supply blocked a little, but all of his factories, they were not firing on all cylinders. He pulled his SCVs with like a tank and a Hellbat against 10 Roaches, and then the Roaches, of course, going to kill all those SCVs, but Nerchio having the the awareness to do that, and then also the SCVs that were sent to reinforce the mech army that was already out on the map. He moves his Hydra Ravager ball towards the center, cuts them off at the ramp, kills all of those SCVs. He wasn't able to have any setup there, and then once Nerchio really had a good grip on this game, the move into Vipers was the key. Vipers are your most important unit, bar none, against the Terran mech army.
And he didn't drop the ball on them. It's not like he tried to get 2 or 3 Vipers and then the Vikings would pick off one. He would only have 2 and you abduct 2 units.
When
you gotta go back again.
Vipers, there's no, like, the way Vikings are gonna overkill. Well, it's time to get into the next game, ladies and gentlemen, to find out who's gonna take this best of 3. It's TY versus Nerchio, and we're gonna finish this one up on Galactic Process in the northeast position. The Polish Zerg tying things up. He's Nerchio. And his opponent, the Terran, mixing it up. Can he finish this match once and for all? He's TY.
Definitely looked a little frustrating there towards the end of Game 2. Probably understanding as well that this game slipped away. This was his game to lose. Had a phenomenal early game and a lot of things went his way. Was just taking care of everything that Nerchio had to offer. And it felt like he was in control. And it felt like he was starting his march to victory. Once those tanks and Hellbats made their way across the map, it really felt that it was going to be the beginning of the end. For Nerchio, however, this must give him so much momentum, so much confidence. Because he played great the last 50 minutes in this game. I really don't think Nerchio made a whole lot of mistakes.
Yep, the biggest thing that happened was going for the counter, and at the same time, TY also took it, I would say, probably too slow. When your opponent has, 40 supply of Roaches out there, those Hydras and Ravagers, they're scary, but with the number of Hellbats and Siege Tanks, he could have unsieged and pushed through that and knocked down 2 more bases before trying to go home and defend. So things just got out of hand, and I really feel like Nerchio just reacted a lot better in that crazy scenario. He was able to force a very awkward position for TY to try and make a decision in.
and saving all the drones once again. Even after that crazy base trade, I looked at the workers active tab. His tab remained unchanged. It was still above 70, while TY, he dipped all the way to like 35, 32-ish, and that just really set him back, and it took him a long time. And that allowed Nerchio to not just catch up in upgrades, but really get a very powerful army going for himself. 3-1, 3-2, and once again, all those Vipers.
Yep. I do think that the style is awesome. I don't know that we'll see it again this game. I think after
like,
that,
I'm done with it, Nate. I'm so done with it.
Probably won't see that one again here, but it's still awesome to see that because I think a lot of people have a wrong impression of how exciting and fun Mech can be. He was all over that game, and I love watching games like that. So Nerchio did open up with a quick pull. He's going to run a few links, kill this SCV now that the Reaper's across the map. This is not the most uncommon thing. Sometimes you send 6-lings because you want to cancel the natural, but this was more of a, I'm just going to delay you and also be safe in the event that you do something crazy like Proxy Reaper.
I like this a lot. Look at the amount of SCVs that are not mining now, Nate. That could have been doing something else, but are actually not mining. Nerchio already, doing something nice for himself. I think he picked off one SCV there. The Reaper in the end will keep this command center safe and keep the SCV safe.
Totally worth.
Yeah.
Great play by Nerchio there. He automatically sets himself in a nice spot at the start of this game. Most of the time when Zerg players go for this is one of those things where as a Terran, if you're on autopilot and you send your Reaper straight across, boom, your natural is delayed a good amount.
Yeah, to put things in perspective, on King Sejong Station, that Reaper also picked off 2 links, and it did absolutely nothing for Nerchio. It really didn't get anything done. Now we saw 3-4 SCVs, derping around, having a cup of tea with each other, but not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
They were not made to fight, Roddy.
No, and they were definitely made to build that command center, and that command center was delayed by a solid 20 seconds, I'd say, because of those links. So very cute start by Nerchio, and good pathing as well on his links, avoiding the Reaper on his way to the other side of the map.
Yep, TY is going to keep poking with his Reaper. This is, so far, the same opening direction that TY took on New Gettysburg. Whether he decides to go for the fast mine, no, it's going to be a quicker siege tank this time around. No, he still has the mine. Okay, so you consider the marine mine drop. The tank is always on the way back. One of the reasons why I like this build, even if you're a Terran player who likes to go bio, this build from TY is going to keep you safe against so many different aggressive builds. It's like almost a free win against a lot of 2 or 3 base pushes that a Zerg can make against you. So TY has a very safe follow-up to his aggression that he's going for.
I feel Nerchio is so much better prepared this time. I mean, he doesn't have anything for the Widow Mine, but he does have 8 additional links on the way. Already had 10 links in position. I think there's another Queen to assist the first Queen. That Queen should not die, and it does die.
Ooh.
The Widow Mine does not get that hit off that it was looking for.
Every Terran just had a heart attack watching that. So close. So close. And maybe the Zergs as well.
For different reasons, Nate.
Yeah. Seen a lot of probes die in your days. So these Marines are doing a great job. They're pushing these Zerglings back. You want to force the Queens to come up and maybe eat that mine shot. He does get the Queen, so very nice because this means this medevac should be able to just chill here with the healing. Yeah, good luck killing those Marines.
Yeah, really good pickups there by TY as well, picking up the Marine that was hurt in the back and dropping it behind the other Marines.
That was really good. So he did get some serious value out of that. And we saw some links trying to run across the other side, but, well, that's why you build a defensive siege tank. Good luck, have fun. Third command center's halfway done. We do have a Liberator to follow up the siege tank medevac drop. And so far, I didn't want to say that he might do the same thing as last game. He hasn't taken the gases on his natural yet, but this has been very closely followed. It's going to be 2 tanks being brought by medevacs to assist with this Marine push.
I think he's just going to drop more barracks though. I think that makes a lot more sense because he's still building more Marines behind all of this as well. I'd be shocked.
We'll see. He's taken the 2 gases. I would say that this is still a pretty solid map for mech play. Normally when I make a kind of call that you would do this build twice in a row, I'm totally fine being wrong, but he is still following the last game build to a T.
Going to try to find an opening with his tanks. It's very nice for TY that he was able to get both Queens. I think that was a tiny bit sloppy by Nerchio, even though he had a great start in the game with his initial links.
Yeah, it is going to be bio, by the way. He's dropped both engineering bays and barracks, so I didn't think we'd see that twice. This link counterattack is really nice, though, since all the siege tanks are across the map.
Oh, and the tanks actually killing these Marines as well, so more SCVs will fall. Does Nerchio have enough on the other side of the map? It kind of seems like it. He's in a very comfortable position, Nate. 55 drones against 39 SCVs. Of course, there are 3 orbital commands, but still, I think this is something as Zerg you're very, very pleased with.
And he's still kind of poking over there. We've seen on the minimap those little pings. Getting the Queens is really nice. I think that's like your goal now. Okay, you've killed the Queens. Maybe get another shot. Oh, that Liberator! So with the Queens being dead, that actually makes this Liberator even more important, since he can continue to poke with this tank harass on the top side. And we all know Liberators, if you do not have a good setup to defend against them, they're a nightmare to deal with.
That Queen, oh, the Queen stepping in on the edge of the circle twice. Another counterattack by Nerchio though. This time the Marine positioning is good. There's going to be a Liberator siege stop over here as well. It's going to try to keep the SCV safe. It's a scrappy game to say the least. Both sides having a lot of casualties. Third orbital is done now. I feel that TY waited quite some time to actually morph it, but he did recently start it and it finished up.
Yep. So he's got a position now. He can try to move out, take that third. We see he's going to get 3 depots in the bunker to block that. One of the tanks on the aggressive side does get grabbed. This one is very low health too, so maybe it's time to go home. He got 10 drone kills.
Got a lot of queens.
Still a very back and forth, but not as decisive as any of the other games in terms of doing serious, lead building damage.
Now this time it's actually double evolution chamber for Nerchio as well. I was probably quite happy with how the beginning of this game went and felt like he could get away with it. He's getting melee upgrades too, infestation pits, and Nerchio's absolutely going to try to make his way up to Ultralisk.
And I feel like he may have realized what's going on with the number of Marines that were left back home, and just the fact that he didn't have tanks, so there's no Hellions on the map, so maybe he's also realizing that you do need those Ling upgrades, the melee upgrades, to be able to really work very well against the bio, especially if you want to go up to Ultralisks, which are, that's what forces the Terran to switch into Liberators and Ghosts and what have you.
Nerchio opening up all the possible attack routes later on, or at least we know that Nerchio, at least in the European scene, is the king of engagements. He always has units coming in from 360-degree angles. He's just everywhere at once, and this is going to allow him to get some of those great engagements later on. He just got a scout in the main base, a very important one with that WCS, so he saw the barracks. TY getting his scout done on the other side of the map with a simple scan.
Yep. And that Overseer continuing to poke away. Those 2 tank evacs going to fly across as 1-1 finishes up for TY. Note, this is pretty similar to the way that he seemed to want to play on King Sejong Station, where he builds his army at home. He doesn't overextend. He doesn't make a big push out now. He wants to chill, sit back, and push back the creep, pick off whatever he can. That Infestor is going to be very scary, though. If he gets one fungal, it could be the end of those tanks.
One SCV keeps being misrallied, unless he just wants to check if there is a base being taken on the right side there as well, and he has no presence.
Like, the SCVs aren't as worth as much to me as my Marines. Can't throw them away.
I feel like that happened quite a few times. There's one like...
Hive is very close to finishing up, so we should be seeing the Ultralisk Cavern boot up soon with +3 Carapace, the most important upgrades for TVZ when you're playing against Bio. And the Viper is probably not something that we're going to see again here. This is pretty straightforward, ZvT.
Oh, he gets the Infestor. Well done there by TY. Good focus fire on his tanks. And at the same time, the army's coming in as well. I'm not sure if he stimmed. No, he didn't stim just yet. Nerchio's eating a lot of damage of those 2 tanks, Nate.
Yeah, this push in towards the central base could work very well. He could drop the tanks on the high ground, use the rest of his Marine Marauder. And look how many siege tanks he has. I love seeing this against Zergs that want to play Roach Ravager into Ultra. Siege tanks are insanely good because you can chew up all of that meat around them, and it's not as cheap as Lings like we see many players use to supplement this force.
Nerchio had no map presence at all on the south side, so he had no idea that this army was marching out. He saw it later. He saw just a little bit too late. Liberator is going to try to be annoying in the Nerchio as well. Will the Queen be moved? Doesn't look like it. Does Nerchio have enough to clean this up?
This siege tank medevac micro, all of the tanks still firing away, pulling them back as the roaches get closer, and no fungal on the medevac, so he's able to save the majority of these tanks. He's able to get out with quite a few of them. The Liberator ripped that east base apart. It's sitting at 14 kills now. Got the Queen there as well, forcing the repositioning, and these siege tanks just drop them like they're hot, pick off a few more roaches and ravagers.
Ultralisk Cavern has not been dropped yet, correct? No, he has not. He's been under a lot of pressure, so Nerchio losing
no +3 Carapace either, so those sort of game-ending tools are not available to deal with this, and because of that, this army for TY, when 2-2 kicks in, is going to be extremely tough to stop. Bio with this army is not going to be a fun matchup. You need Ultralisks to be able to fight against this.
And this army is quite bruised as well from Nerchio. He's been needing a lot of tank shots, of course, because of the good tank evac micro from TY. A couple of Liberators going to try to take care of, Ravagers, excuse me, going to take care of this one Liberator on the right side. Don't step into the circle. Almost got pushed into it. Did you see that, Nate? I would never do that to you.
His buddy almost popped him in. Gotta be careful. He's pushing in once again. 5 siege tanks right behind all of these Marines. Has to be very careful about these Infestors, though. One fungal is going to whiff pretty hard.
Wow, it seems like TY got quite scared to see more Infestors there, and he's like, I don't want to stick around too much longer, so he decides to back off for now. The Building of Doom is halfway done, and the armor upgrades are starting as well.
So the real question we have to ask ourselves now is TY prepared? The Ghost Academy is about halfway done. We have Liberators being built. Personally, I would love to see at least a second starport. He does not have that. I'd like to see a fusion core as well. Liberators at range are extremely good in these scenarios. And the other thing that's always very important to note is if he goes ham on Liberators right now, he has a very good position because the only anti-air is through the Infestors and the Corrosive Bile. Without a Spire and upgrades, Liberators can still be really, really strong. Tries to focus fire down 1 or 2 of the Infestors, but cranking out Liberators like nuts is the best move to make.
He gets one of them. This base on the right side for Nerchio is incredibly exposed. He's going to try to spread his Overlords a little better, so you can see drops like these coming in time. And he does have enough units to deal with it to potentially land a Fungal. So far, Nate, the Fungals really haven't done it yet for Nerchio. I don't think a single Fungal connected with almost anything.
Depending on what he fungals, though, it could just be one if he gets one of these medevacs. But this base does get sniped. He gets the Queen. He can go for the Creep Tumors at the same time. Gets a drop on the right side. TY really trying to pull Nerchio apart with all of this multitasking, all of this harass, but he's shutting down. Drop after drop. This frontal assault, though, is still a huge threat. This is what he wants that money fungal on.
Yep, the 4 Ultras are on their way. That one medevac should get shut down as well. TY, of course, opening up a little bit of supply. Losing a few of these Marines here and there is not that important anymore, as he wants more Liberators and he wants more Ghosts.
Yeah, this is a great map for Ghost Liberator versus Zerg, simply by virtue of look at all these choke points. If you want to throw down a few depots or an engineering bay, very cheap, large building, you can block pathing very nicely. All you have to do is prevent the Zerg from getting damage on those Ghosts when they're trying to land those snipes. So Ghost, Liberator, Widowmine, TY has the money to build the army that he needs to win this game.
But I think Nerchio knows it as well, and I think if Nerchio decides to really attack, those corrosive balls will not connect with that medevac. I think taking down the rocks on the south side is probably the best choice for Nerchio, right? And then
the best way to
initial turret.
The best way to deal with this army is you either force the Terran to come out and fight you, but the map is too small. Terran can always inch forward and get these bases. You want to try to pull the Terran around in a spot where they can't quite be there. And I mean, these ultras kind of disturb it a little. But yeah, you really don't want the Terran player. Like, the worst way that you could lose a game as Zerg in this position is to attack into Siege Liberators, Widowmines, tanks, and while Ghosts start to target on you. Like, you're throwing the game away at that point. You need to pull the Terran out of his shell because, you know, with Bio, you want to run around and do everything, but your Bio isn't going to be able to do that against Ultralisks.
Nerchio's really looking to open up one of these attack paths on the south side as he wants to take out the rocks, but TY just left 1 or 2 tanks behind everywhere, making it a lot harder for our Zerg to open up those routes and kind of forcing him to take one of the routes that you said he should absolutely not take, which is obviously near the goal that TY just secured for himself.
Yeah, well, I mean, his goal here is to just pull him out. The Ultralisks are always going to be the anchor in this army that keeps it, keeps it from shaking too much against Bio. The Liberators and the Ghosts are most vulnerable when they're out in the field. You know, you hit those Ghosts with the Banelings or the Lings, all the snipes will get canceled. Maybe you'll kill the Ghosts. So what you really need to do, pull the Terran out of the shell. As a Terran player, you got to turtle a little bit with this style because your Ghosts don't have stim. They're very, very expensive, and it's basically the same thing with your Liberators. They're a bit more mobile, but one fungal and they stack really hard.
I mean, one of my favorite games of the entire year of 2016 was Nerchio against Marine Lord on Apotheosis. Obviously kind of an unfair map and a much better map for Nerchio. But that kind of looked like this at a certain point, and it just kept on happening, and Nerchio showed us that he also knows how to deal with this super late-game Terran army.
I love that he's considering the threat of Corruptors and Vipers. We have high-sec auto-tracking on the way for TY, just to get that extra range for his missile turrets, so that they're a little bit better at pushing away Corruptors. He needs the Liberators, and getting advanced ballistics for those is going to help too. These SCVs don't actually think they can fight. He just wants more supply for army units.
Yep, still has 54 SCVs, and that's more than enough. And you've got all the infrastructure you can dream of, and you've got all the upgrades that you want. You don't need that many SCVs anymore, and TY obviously knows that. I think there is that an Overlord on the left top side denying the orbital, or no? This is a little too late.
He's just chilling.
A little too late. So it's obviously very important for Nerchio that he can do something about the crazy expanding that is currently happening for TY.
Yeah, this map is so small. It's one of the things that makes this style extremely powerful for TY now that he has reached it. There's not a lot of areas to run around. And you mentioned earlier the bottom side. This is the best part. This is the soft underbelly to go for as an Ultralisk distracts this army. While the third base is going to be completely ravaged. The Corruptors are here. Remember, they can also caustic spray down that base. One Liberator able to get a few shots off here, but the Ghosts cloak, they snipe all of the Corruptors. Finishing these off would be a huge pickup right now Great use of those ghosts.
TY said, I want to keep those refineries alive and mining for as long as I can.
I thought they were all the way by the gold base. I didn't realize how close they were. That's a really good place to keep them, especially with the cloaks, since all the missile turrets are going to keep things like overseers from getting that close.
A few more SCVs did fall, though. I mean, I guess TY is still more than rich enough. He has enough for now. Doesn't really have that much to worry about.
It's a very expensive army. You don't want to lose this. That's why these scenarios usually lead to the Terran hanging back. You don't want to push into Baneling, Ultralisk, Infestor. That's, I mean, it's signing your own death certificate.
All right, a couple of links with Adreno Glands going to try to run by. Could jump on these tanks, might be able to get one, or actually should be able to get both tanks. Links with Adreno Glands, don't mess around. Take out the sensor tower as well, that's very nice. I think it's very important for TY that he replaces that one, because he wants to know where these units are coming from.
Yeah, damn Adreno Gland links. Great point. The attack speed upgrade on those makes them extremely good at ripping those buildings apart. We do not have building armor. +2 vehicle armor is on the way for the Liberators and Medevacs and Widow Mines, but Liberators are going to siege. Nerchio wants to push this base once again. Liberators covering the Ghost. Is he going to go for those steady targeting shots? He will pick off a few of those units on the way out.
I mean, Nerchio really wants that Orbiter when TY refuses to give it up.
He has to keep making these Overseers too, because the first thing that you should do as you start a fight like this is you just 2 snipes on the Overseer, make sure it's removed from play, then the rest of your Ghosts are invincible and invisible.
It's really cool. It's split map, but not in the way that we normally see it. You know, it's more like you take the left side and I take the right. Well,
Yeah.
normally it's more like bottom and top, so that's kind of cool. Liberator does have advanced ballistics, of course, in this phase in the game. We saw that finish up a little while ago. It's going to be very annoying, forcing Nerchio to bring his Corruptors over here.
And I like that Nerchio actually gets the Carapace upgrade for his Flyers too, because that ensures that the Liberators will never kill them. Of course, they lost some of their damage against Armored earlier in the year, and that makes the Corruptors very, very important for dealing with them.
What do you think about a Nidus in this phase in the game, just for your links with Adreno Glands?
It can work. You can reposition Liberators, but maybe that's a good way to pull the Liberators back. I'm honestly not
Oh, a
entirely
big fight
sure.
in the middle of the map as well, as not all of the units, but the Ghosts are starting to go pretty forward. Good Fongo, but I'm not sure if there's enough damage output to actually pick off a couple of these Ghosts.
And he has to be extremely cautious, because if those
you
Ghosts get caught, if those Ghosts
Oh
die,
my
they're
God.
so expensive. You need them so badly.
Oh, he picks them up.
in the Medevacs at the last possible second. You remember, they cannot snipe if they take damage. An excellent save. What is that Queen doing? What are you doing over there?
They secured the area, Nate.
She ran.
No more orbital.
She ran so far away.
It's like, is this really what I got called in for? Did you guys have so much trouble cleaning out this area? Like,
What a series. What a match we have here. TY's going to try to build a command center on the top left. Nerchio's like, oh, I want that base. He's going to start the hatchery up. The Ghosts remaining in the cover of the tanks and Liberators. Those are your two units. They're going to keep the Ghosts alive so that they can land those cash money snipes that are so important against this army.
I mean, it looks like TY has some money in the bank, and the same goes for Nerchio, obviously like 1,700, 2,000, but that's honestly not all that much, especially not when you're working with these incredibly expensive armies. That's why TY really wants to secure an additional base, and he absolutely does not want to lose this one, but I don't think there's any saving this, as his units are too far out of position. This planetary fortress will fall. TY is trying to secure what I guess you would normally take as your 5th base.
Yeah. He's going to have this army push the bottom right side as well. A popular question I get is, when do you get building armor as Terran? Situations like this, it's very useful. Those Zerglings with all of those upgrades, you need to be able to buy yourself as much time as possible. The Ghost, once again, extended a good bit. Need to be cautious, though. There's a lot of Corruptors that could try to make a play on those Liberators. Creep is spreading, blocking the bottom bases. Actually taking one of the bases that normally the Terran player would have already mined out by now in the bottom center.
That's the best position.
He doesn't even
to
know
hide,
about it.
right?
It's like the last
Oh, he
place
sends
would
one
check.
Marine. I think he sends one Marine.
Okay, there we go. Thanks, Billy.
Yep.
You spotted it.
Never forget. I mean, Nerchio had 4 hatcheries going up at once, because Nerchio obviously not that rich anymore either. Doesn't really, he's not in the position to just lose units left and right. Banelings will connect with a few more SCVs, but they all survive, and the Ghosts are here as well.
Solid snipes. Corruptors do not die to one snipe, so he needs to get his double tap on those bad boys to finish them off. I mean, the Queen!
No!
Well, her journey comes to an
He
end.
should have just secured the premises.
She could have gone the other way.
And then take out Billy. That would have been
Exactly.
great.
Defend the hatchery.
The most random fight ever, the 21-minute mark. Why not? 4 more infestors on the way now for Nerchio, 138 army supply against 151. I mean, both of these armies are just ridiculous. But I think in a way, it's good for TY because most of the bases has been taken towards the north side and the left top side of the map, which means that all these bases are still super fresh.
Yeah, one of the biggest things to keep in mind is that this isn't New Gettysburg. You don't have a bajillion bases to mine from. There's no safe spot that you're going to be able to move around to. This hurts Nerchio in this instance because if we compare banks, like Nerchio cannot actually engage TY's army. TY's army will beat this if they fight head-to-head in that siege setup. What Nerchio needs to do is try to just hit him in all these different areas, but this is not the last game. He can't just throw away armies and be like, well, I'm mining more than you, so it doesn't matter. It's like, no, TY's army is an extreme threat. He's going to try to push into this, and all of the Ghosts and Liberators are on the west side, but still a lot of shots coming down on these. Once the Ultras are gone, the Marines and Marauders can run free, and we see how fast they melt to those Liberators.
Yeah, good fungals, but I think Nerchio can just not get close enough. He's remaxing on links, and that's almost never a good sign, as he's just still so incredibly broke.
Yeah, he's broke.
Why TY? I mean, he's, I wouldn't say swimming in money, but he still has quite a bit. He can replace those expensive units that he's losing.
And he has, as you mentioned, access to bases that have a lot of resources. He spent a lot of time mining the northwest base. The gold base is mined out. TY finds this expansion again. And you have to be so cautious because as soon as you lose certain types of these units, like once the Ultras are gone, the Bio can kill almost everything. And it's once the Corruptors are gone, the Liberators can kill everything.
And it's only 3 Ultras now, Nate. That's not a crazy amount, especially not when you take into consideration there are still 12 Ghosts on the map, and there are obviously still a lot of Liberators as well.
Yeah, we've got some meager pickings right now for Nerchio as TY has built himself a very nice position with the bank that he's accrued. This tank is gonna keep shooting at these links. I guess they're just gonna try to focus down this command center, but TY should be able to run some of his forces back to save that bad boy. Prevent him from...
These links are insane.
You don't want those to get on your barracks. Those things, without building armor, they can actually just rip through a lot of your production, kill your add-ons very, very fast.
And one of the orbitals is starting to burn as well. TY is being busy on the north side of the map as he's trying to deny one more hatchery, and he should be able to get it with just these 4 Marauders. Might get an infester.
So close. Yet so far.
Actually, one of the orbitals in the natural just died against those two. No, never mind. He lifted it up. Never mind, I thought it was...
It's like moving the Liberator takes too long. Move the command center instead. So he retakes the bottom right base. He's trying to get that gold base back. And the Ravagers on the high ground. This is something that should be solved pretty quickly once TY gets his bearing. But the Corruptors are moving in now on top of these guys. Actually, he killed so many supply depots. TY's supply blocked. He can't build any units.
Oh, getting a couple of the medevacs as well.
Good.
That's nice, and making it a lot harder for these Ghosts to get away if the Banelings get nice and close. And at least Nerchio is slowly but steady securing some sort of an economy again.
How weird. TY actually cannot replenish. He needs to either drop supply on his existing depots, or he has to build like 4 or 5 more depots to actually get back to 200. So those Lings definitely left their mark. Some snipes getting landed, picks off one of the Ravagers, gets rid of the Ultra, and a few other, but you have to be so cautious. If those Overseers catch wind... Okay. And you go for the snipe. You see when the Ghost takes damage, it does get canceled. You cannot take any heat while you are trying to land those. Liberator's going to siege on the southeast. In the northwest, TY is securing another expansion. So most of the army is here in the bottom, or excuse me, that's just a bunch of links for Nerchio. They're going to go back in towards where the production is and try to neutralize this once again. But the Corruptors are going to come clean up this Liberator, who is now at 11, 12 kills.
TY actually left a lot of units behind this time, so he's not going to take a whole lot of damage from these links.
Nerchio
burrowing them, that's cute.
At this point in the game, you probably have every upgrade, or at least you should. This has been absolutely nuts. And if he leaves these behind, this can end up coming to bite him in the back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're looking at a lot of things, right? You're not just looking at these links. TY is looking at these Liberators. He wants to make sure he doesn't lose them. A couple of snipes will connect with Corruptors. Nerchio's supply is starting to plummet, Donate.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a lot of gas, so he can make a few more infestors, I guess, but he just doesn't have a lot of minerals.
Yeah, another important thing to keep in mind, of course, is like those Corruptors also need to be something you do worry about a little bit, because if you leave one of your bases exposed in Legacy of the Void, they do have that caustic spray. They can kill buildings now, so they are very tough to deal with. But look at how low their health is. You have to bring out all your queens, try to transfuse. Do you even have that many queens left at this point in the game?
4.
And as we've been talking about forever, the bank of TY. He has more than enough money to replace. He can try to hemorrhage a few of these. A fungal on these Ghosts would be pretty insane, though.
Yeah, that would make it a lot closer. One Liberator is keeping this mineral line safe. Link's going to try to be annoying and pick off a few SCVs, but not that easy. He can park below.
And he's like, well, can I kill enough SCVs by the time the Liberator kills these Lings?
At least
Probably.
because, I mean, it is not Liberator, I think, being annoying on the right bottom side of the map. There are a few Widow Mines here as well. This base is just untakeable. I think it's been taken down 3 or 4 times now. And this one time, there's not going to be any mining for Nerchio either. Ooh, the Widow Mines.
Sick game. Nerchio gets scanned on that gold base. TY knows about it 100%. Now he sees where the army is as this Liberator passes by. Tries to land some snipes. Gets some health off that Ultralisk.
I mean, this is kind of what Artosis was talking about, right? It's like, you want to play a long game? I'll play the longest game. I'm going to sit here with Liberators, with Widow Mines, with Ghosts.
It's funny that the two Terrans that have had, in my opinion, the best late games versus Zerg, which many people love to complain about, are TY and Beyond. And it's no surprise that they're here, being two of the guys that absolutely rock at this phase of the game.
Fungal will connect with quite a few of these bio units. Big connections on the Banelings as well, but still quite a few goals survive, and that is the biggest problem. Is there an answer to the remaining goals? I must say, that was a pretty decent fight, though, for Nerchio. Made it a little bit closer. Great Aspire is, by the way, halfway done, which is not something that I expected him to get anytime soon.
That's your last punch if you're Nerchio, then, if he denies this base again. I mean, he's got the gold. He's retaking that center base that's been killed a few times, but he's now mining the southeast base with impunity, so... Very nice for him. The Liberators are going to slowly siege forward. Keep in mind, he's been killing a lot of Corruptors. If you want to make Broodlords, it's actually going to make those Liberators weird because they can start to fight again.
Both players is playing insane. While the Infested does fall, you got to be careful with these Ultras. They're super expensive.
Good snipe for the Ghost.
Oh.
I'm
That's good life insurance right there, Nate.
I'm ready to hit my keyboard after seeing that. every Terran player just muttered under their breath.
6 Broodlords being morphed at once. Over here near the
this does
base.
make things weird because the infrastructure exists to build Vikings, and they cost more minerals than gas, so they actually work with the economy that TY has, where he's got quite a few more minerals. So what comes down to is how quickly is he going to be aware of this, because this army's not necessarily bad against Broodlords, as weird as that is to say. The Widow Mines will do friendly fire, but this isn't the Marine tank army where your tanks destroy your whole entire army in a few seconds.
Really good job by Nerchio. He kept 3 Corruptors in the right bottom side as one more Liberator tried to arrest his mineral line, but the Corruptors were literally sitting there being like, hey, what's up?
Look at TY's like immediately, all right, we're going to get a sensor tower right outside your base, missile turrets. I'd love to see him clear the creep and just build E-bays. For the cost and the hit points, really good at blocking those Ultralisks from being able to just run onto your bio.
I mean, there's still 4 Ultras, so you make a valid point there. I felt at a certain point Nerchio's Ultra count dropped to 2 even. Gonna end up losing 1 more hatchery, but that's not Nerchio's biggest concern. If Nerchio can secure this base as well on the south side of the map and do something about this one from TY, this bit, I mean, this game is just crazy, Nate. Like, I don't even know what we're watching.
There are Overseers. He wants to try to get snipes from the north side on those Broodlords. Getting rid of the Ultralisk Cavern is very nice for him. The Ghosts are going to move in. It looks like the Ghosts are trying to get the snipes off right now. They do pull back. Did he get any of the Broodlords? No, maybe just one of the Ultras, it looks like.
Still 6 of them.
Yeah, he got one of the Ultralisks.
Lynx take care of most of those Marines and Marauders on the north side of the map.
Yeah. You're not breaking this, buddy. 3 Liberators, Planetary Fortress, Widow Mines, Missile Turrets.
I feel in a way, like if TY leaves too many units on the north side, it could get very hard to win a straight-up engagements, especially now.
Well, this has become all about attrition.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're TY, I guess you're like not even thinking about straight-up fight. You're like, well, he's got Broodlords, Banelings, Ultras, and Queens, and Corruptors. This should be the best army he could build to fight against me head-to-head, but...
A lot of Widow Mines in the mix there, and Broodlords are almost
This could actually get really bad. Those Widow Mines could actually blow up most of TY's army if those Widow Mines detonate on the Broodlings, so he actually loads them up. Oh my god! I've seen this on Reddit before, Kevin. Is he going to drop all the Widow Mines under the Broodlords? I've seen Beyond do this on his stream. It's so sick. Or maybe he'll just drop it on the bases. That's cool too.
Cut off reinforcements, just trying to be super annoying.
Yeah, that's a weird way to do it, but yeah, I guess it can work. Does he have a drop coming behind this with some bio in it? Okay, there we go. So he's basically saying, clear the Lings out with these mines, pull you away, and I do like that.
Good answer by Nerchio, though. He didn't waste that much time, but at the same time, TY is going to try to do something about the base, I believe, on the south side. Well, he's moving units in position. Will Nerchio be able to make it back in time? Look at the supplies, Nate. It's suddenly a lot closer than it's been in a very, very long time.
Nerchio really needs this base.
Surviving.
Nerchio really needs this one. He has no bank at all. This army has to come stand and deliver against this force. We have Lings. Banelings are on the way, but they're not here yet. The Ghosts are covered in the Liberation Zones. Here come the Broodlords. There's no Vikings. The Infestors drop the Fungals. They hit the Liberators. The missile turrets are being destroyed. Once these Broodlords can get through, once the Corruptors can get through, a lot of this bio will be exposed. If he can kill the Ultras, though, a mass Marine flood with the bank that he's accrued could be enough.
Ghosts are going to try to get a couple snipes off. Most of the Corruptors will fall.
Without that anti-air, even these Liberators could unsiege and start to fight. That's why that Carapace was so nice. They won't do a lot of damage, but they can try.
More snipes gone down as well. Just 2 Broodlords remain. It feels like there's just not that much
This
DPS
should be
anymore.
it. TY has cleared out the tier 3 army. Nerchio, with more Marines than TY, will not be able to take this fight. The Siege Liberators go up one last stand, one last fight. Ultra in the Freedom Zone. It's down. TY with a 100 supply lead takes the series. GG.
Wow. What a final game. What a final move there by TY as well. Pulling the entire army out of position with that Wintermine drop and that bio drop. It looked like it was important for Nerchio to clean that up. And he went there, but because of that, the Broodlords were so far out of position. And it made it incredibly difficult to keep that base alive. And how do we even call that base, Nate? That is like a potential 6th base for TY, but it turned out to be the only mining base of Nerchio. Like, what a game. What an amazing game 3.
This series was a real treat. If you just tuned in and you did not see how this started, and you barely only saw how it ended, easily the most worth-watch match for me today so far. Awesome, awesome series. Congratulations to TY. We are going to hear from him after a short break. You're watching the World Championship Series.
Welcome to BlizzCon!
This is one of the coolest things you're ever going to see in your life.
For Azeroth! We invented some brand new characters.
When we first did BlizzCon back in 2005, we had no idea what to expect.
Are we ready to begin the costume contest?
It's so much more than a game in a box. Have a great BlizzCon!
Of the storm. Prepare for Heroes Brawl, the new game mode that breaks all the rules. Rated T for teen.
This is a place of funky magic, phenomena. Anything goes for one night in
See the full animated short at playoverwatch.com.
Earlier today, we saw that Showtime was able to take down Deer, and then we saw Byun win, and today we see a very close series between TY and Nerchio, 2-1. Let's just jump right into talking about those games because it was possibly the most intense series we've had thus far here at the WCS Global Finals. TY, let's just jump into game 2 rather. After a really easy game 1, game 2 in fact started in favor for you, but then Nerchio was able to pull it back. So what happened there?
그 두 번째 경기에서 좀 유리하게 시작을 했는데 그래도 너치오 선수가 역전을 했어요. 그래서 그 경기에 대해서 좀 얘기해 주세요.
사실 경기 자체는 계속 9대1 이상이라고 생각을 했는데 그 제가 정면 쪽 가면서 밑에 그 좁은 길을 생각을 못 해가지고 그 바퀴에 너무 많이 휘둘려서 좀 역전을 당한 것 같고 그 경기를 지고 좀 살짝 좀 멘탈이 나갔었는데 이렇게 3경기에 좀 차분하게 마인드 컨트롤 해가지고 다시 집중해서 이길 수 있었던 것 같아요.
So he says, actually, during game two, I actually felt like I was at a huge advantage, 9-1. But in fact, in that map, there was a path on the bottom of the map that was very narrow that I didn't that I wasn't really aware of, and a lot of my units died because of the roaches there, and I feel like that was a huge turning point for Nerchio and why I lost that game. And in fact, after I lost that game, I felt a little bit taken aback, and I was a little bit nervous headed into Game 3, but I tried to control my mind as much as possible, and I think that's why I was able to win. And speaking of Game 3, that was another long game between you and Nerchio, and I'm wondering, when a game goes on as long as that, what are the key things that you decided to focus on to ensure that you would be able to take home the win? 이제 그 마지막 경기에서도 되게 좀 오래 흘러갔는데 경기가 흘러가면서 무엇을 중심으로 생각을 해서 이렇게 하면 이길 수 있겠다 생각을 하셨나요?
후반으로 가면 갈수록 유령하고 해방선이 쌓이면은 테란에게 좀 많이 좋아가지고 계속 막으면서 어떻게든 상대 자원줄만 더 안 주고 조합을 갖추자라는 생각을 하면서 했는데 너치오 선수가 생각보다 훨씬 더 잘 휘둘러가지고 힘든 경기가 된 것 같아요.
So he says, in that game, all I thought to myself was, if I can just bring it out to the late game, I felt like I would be at an advantage because when Terrans can mass up Ghosts and Liberators, it can be really easy for them. But actually, Nerchio did such a good job. He put up such a great fight, and that's why it went on as long as it did. But I just tried to focus on killing off his resources as much as possible, and that's why I was able to win. Now, your next two players, it could be either Solar or a Laser, two more Zerg players. I'm wondering, how are you feeling about your TVZ overall? Obviously, this year, it's been one of your best matchups, so are you feeling pretty confident headed into that potential matchup?
이제 마지막 질문은 이제 솔러 강민수 선수나 레이저 선수를 만날 수 있는데 다들 저그 선수들이잖아요. 그래가지고 뭐 이제 전태환 선수도 저그전을 엄청 잘하는 걸로 알고 있는데 그래가지고 자신감이 있는지 그리고 그냥 어떻게 생각을 하시는지.
그 블리즈컨 준비하면서 저그가 3명이나 있어가지고 저그전만 하고 왔거든요, 연습을. 그래서 굉장히 저는 쉽게 이길 줄 알았는데 막상 들어가 보니까 너치오 선수도 그렇고 다른 외국 선수들도 너무 잘해가지고 힘든 경기가 될 것 같고 빨리 승자전으로 1등으로 꼭 올라가고 싶어요.
So he says, because I knew there were 3 Zerg players in my group, I only practiced TVZ headed into the WCS Global Finals, and I was actually feeling really confident. I thought that I'd be able to advance no problem, but this first match against Nerchio, I'm definitely realizing how good these foreign players are, and I don't think it'll be easy at all. I just want to head into the winners match as soon as I can and just advance to the quarterfinals ASAP. Well, we'll see how you do in this winners match. Congratulations again, TY, and it will be TY moving on to the winners match first in Group D.
Thank you very much, Smix. Yes, he'll be back on Saturday to see if he can go through to play at BlizzCon. Back on the couch here with In Control, Artosis and Sir Tasteless. That series, as you did predict, was the longer one of the two.
Yeah.
The last two we've had.
Yeah, they both showed like unreal skill, and I think that third game really kind of emphasized why I said that TY, I think, has a good matchup against Nerchio, because he is willing to pull back and just play until there's no minerals and just utilize ghosts and abuse that snipe. And it went well for him, but a really close game and like so well played by Nerchio. I'm really hoping those two make it out of the group.
Lived up to the hype. I mean, it felt like a marquee matchup between two very good players, and that was really cool to see. I mean, in this game number 1, this was the kind of concern. We saw the Hellions show up, only loses 1. It was a bopping. Let's just be very honest. TY never was in any danger, just absolutely destroyed him, and it was kind of like, oh gosh, if the whole series is like this, then you know, we're in for a non-treat, if you will.
That game really looked like old school Korean versus foreigner, right? Where I'm like, yeah, you're different levels. But I mean, in the second series, this was actually quite nice. I felt like TY, maybe he tried to finish it too soon. Felt like he did have a little bit of an advantage, but Nerchio dealt with it perfectly.
I mean, there was so much action in that second. I mean, we could have a replay for 20 minutes on this, really. But it did look like it was about to be the same as map 1, and then Nerchio did something to change the fate.
Yeah, he did the counterattack, and against those mech armies, it's very kind of Brood War-esque. It gets to a certain point where that number of tanks, you really can't fight them head on. And Nerchio making the wise choice down 0-1, you know, this opening series kind of on the line for him to bounce back and say, okay, well, I'm going to counterattack, and it really drew TY's army away, but then those tanks get exposed, and all of a sudden you're buying time, and then Vipers came out, and they were really the difference makers, I thought.
You know, it's really special when you get a game that goes on for that long. Obviously, you start out a StarCraft game, you're both following your build orders, you have a few timings, but when you get to the late game, basically the end game, you have all the pieces. It becomes this giant chess game to try to control different parts of the map. and acquire those resources. And I guess it was a real treat to see how well they could play against each other. And Nerchio really held his own back there. I mean, it was really impressive.
Yeah, that final game, like, especially was like a chess game where it's like, if either of them make like one poor decision about how to move their army during that game, it could have just ended right there, right?
And I like too that it was a battle of compositions back and forth, and I didn't feel like it was one of those things that's happened in the past where it's a great game, but then the Terran or the Zerg does one thing and the other player just misreads it and just dies immediately. Really wasn't the case. I thought Fungal Baneling was the right answer to those ghosts.
Yeah.
He went Broodlord a little bit late, but that was because he was kind of fighting for his life the entire time. And I came away from this obviously impressed with TY, but also very impressed by Nerchio. It's almost a shame that the rest of the group is Zerg, because it's like, well, okay, now if Nerchio wants to make it out of here, unless something crazy happens, he has to win 2 ZvZs.
Yeah, and that does make it a little bit worrisome, because I think Nerchio against any other Terran is very likely to win in situations like this. There's very few top-of-the-world Terrans willing to back up into this type of game like TY, and very few that can pull it off as well. And I guess only Bjorn is the only other Terran in the tournament, but
this time around, it's funny though, because I feel like I agree with your point. StarCraft's not this binary, but if Nerchio were to play this level against some other very good Terrans, I feel like he would have actually came out ahead.
He's obviously got a losing record against the Koreans he's played against, but as you said, he is playing against the very, very best at the moment. So we'll see how he's going to shape up later on. He will be needing to play in the elimination match to see if he can survive in the tournament. But that kind of naturally pushes us in very briefly to our next game that's coming up, and just setting up behind us here, we have Solar up against the Laser. Any initial thoughts here, Tasteless, before we prepare ourselves for it?
Solar's in very good shape. I think it's going to be very tough for a Laser to actually take on a player like that. I really just think I hope it's close, but Solar's very strong. I'm expecting this to be somewhat one-sided with Solar.
All right.
Solar is a very good ZvZ player. Obviously, he's actually won. You know, we had that highlight reel day 1 where he wins his championship over Dark. So obviously, a very good Zerg player. But Laser also comes from that scene in Europe where there are a number of very good Zerg players. And he kind of sets himself apart. He not like head and shoulders type of thing, but the couple of big wins for him that got him to this BlizzCon, or within reach of it, were off of the back of beating some very good Zerg players. So he is a threat, absolutely.
All right, well, we'll get a lot more into that in a couple of moments' time. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to take a quick break here at the World Championship Series as we prepare ourselves for the second match of Group D. Do remember to join us on social media. The hashtag for the event is WCS 2016. We'll take this quick break, and when we return, it's a Laser versus Solar.